These are the true costs of fast fashion, an industry that promises trendy clothes at unbeatable prices but delivers environmental destruction, human exploitation, and a disposable culture that's literally reshaping our planet. What you're about to discover will fundamentally change how you think about that $5 dress or those $3 shoes sitting in your closet. Fast fashion has transformed how we consume clothing. We're now buying 400% more clothes compared to just 20 years ago, yet wearing each item only 7 to 10 times before throwing it away. This represents a 35% decline in clothing lifespan in just the last 15 years. But these statistics barely scratch the surface of an industry that generates over $148 billion annually while leaving a trail of devastation across the globe. Let me take you to Chile's Atacama Desert, where something extraordinary and terrifying has occurred. A mountain of discarded clothing, 60,000 tons of it, has grown so massive it can now be seen from space. Satellite imagery reveals this toxic wasteland sprawling across the desert landscape, a monument to our throwaway culture. Every year, 59,000 tons of clothing from Europe, Asia, and North America arrive in northern Chile. The most shocking part? 85% of these garments have never been worn. They're brand new clothes that simply couldn't be sold, so they're dumped in this desert graveyard where they release harmful pollutants into the air and underground water systems. This isn't an isolated incident. Globally, the fashion industry produces 92 million tons of waste annually, a figure projected to reach 134 million tons by 2030. The Ellen MacArthur Foundation estimates that a truckload of abandoned textiles gets dumped in landfill or incinerated every single second. The environmental assault doesn't stop at waste. Fast fashion devours water like no other industry except agriculture, requiring 700 gallons to produce one cotton shirt and 2,000 gallons for a pair of jeans. The industry consumes approximately 93 billion cubic meters of water annually, while ranking as the second largest polluter of clean water worldwide. It's responsible for about 10% of global carbon emissions, more than all international flights and maritime shipping combined. But perhaps most insidious is the microplastics crisis. Cheap synthetic textiles, the backbone of fast fashion, have become the fourth largest source of primary microplastics in our oceans, accounting for 8% of the total. The share of synthetic fibers in clothing has exploded from just 3% in 1960 to 68% today. A 2024 federal report found that 60% of textiles now contain microplastics. Every time we wash these synthetic garments, microscopic plastic fibers flow into our water systems, eventually reaching our food chain and our bodies. The human cost is equally staggering. On April 24, 2013, the world witnessed the deadliest accident in the history of the garment industry. The Rana Plaza commercial building in Bangladesh collapsed, killing 1,134 people and injuring approximately 2,500 others. The day before the collapse, cracks had been discovered in the building. Bank and shop workers were sent home, but garment workers were told to return to their posts. The building owner, Sohel Rana, had used aggressive tactics and political connections to acquire illegal permits and bribe officials to approve construction that was never designed to house heavy industrial machinery. Major Western brands including Benetton, Primark, Mango, and others had sourced products from Rana Plaza factories. Amnesty International called it the most shocking recent example of business-related human rights abuse. Yet more than a decade later, the fundamental problems persist. Today's fast fashion industry employs approximately 75 million factory workers worldwide. Less than 2% of them make a living wage. The European Parliament has described the working conditions in Asian factories as slave labor. Women make up 80 to 85% of garment workers and face particular vulnerabilities. Only 2% are paid wages that cover their basic needs, and up to 50% have experienced sexual harassment. The average monthly wage in countries where garment production is outsourced is often under $200. In Bangladesh, which accounts for 7% of global textile production, it's as low as $140 per month. Meanwhile, research shows that increasing the cost of clothing by just 20 cents per item would be enough to lift all Indian garment workers out of poverty. A Deloitte report found that paying living wages throughout the supply chain would increase retail prices by only 1%. Shein, now the biggest fast fashion brand in the US, with a 50% market share and over $30 billion in global revenue, exemplifies these systemic problems. Channel 4's documentary Inside the Shein Machine sent undercover cameras into factories where workers pulled 17-hour shifts to make hundreds of garments daily. Workers made a base salary of $20 per day, which would be docked by $14 if any garments had mistakes. A 2024 investigation by Public Eye found that workers in Shein factories are still working 75-hour weeks, despite the company's promises of improvement. The chemical dangers are equally alarming. In 2025, Greenpeace analyzed 56 Shein garments purchased across 8 countries. The results were shocking. 32% exceeded EU safety limits, including children's clothing. 7 jackets exceeded toxic PFAS limits by up to 3,300 times. 14 products exceeded phthalates limits, 6 by 100 times or more. Seoul authorities discovered Shein bags containing 153 times the legal limit of phthalates, and shoes at 428 times above permitted levels. When confronted about sourcing cotton from Xinjiang, a region linked to forced labor involving the Uyghur population, Shein's General Counsel for Europe repeatedly avoided confirming or denying the company's practices during a 2025 parliamentary session. The company has admitted to finding 2 cases of child labor in its supply chain, raising questions about how many cases remain undiscovered. Yet here's the paradox that defines our current moment. A study found that 94% of Gen Z consumers say they support sustainable clothing, but 17% shop at fast fashion retailers every week, and 62% do so monthly. We know the costs, but we continue to pay them. Governments are finally beginning to respond. France has passed groundbreaking legislation targeting ultra-fast fashion companies, imposing a €5 tax on every item sold by companies like Shein, increasing to €10 by 2030. The European Union now requires all member states to establish extended producer responsibility schemes for textiles, making companies financially responsible for the entire life cycle of their products. The rise of secondhand fashion offers hope. The U.S. secondhand apparel market grew 14% in 2024, outpacing regular retail by 5 times. The global secondhand market, valued at $190 billion in 2024, is projected to reach $521.5 billion by 2034. 34% of Gen Z consumers regularly shop at thrift stores, with 2 out of 5 items in the average Gen Z closet being secondhand. Since Rana Plaza, the Bangladesh Accord has identified over 122,000 safety violations across factories, with over 90% remedied. More than 2 million workers across 1,600 manufacturing sites are now covered by safety agreements. Progress is possible when pressure is applied. The true cost of cheap clothes isn't hidden anymore. It's written in the toxic chemicals seeping into groundwater beneath the Atacama desert. It's measured in the 75-hour work weeks of factory workers making $20 a day. It's counted in the 92 million tons of textile waste generated annually. It's visible from space. Every purchase is a vote for the kind of world we want to live in. The question isn't whether we can afford to change our shopping habits, it's whether we can afford not to. The price of that $5 dress isn't just $5. It's the true cost of a system that prioritizes profit over people and planet, and that cost is far higher than any of us should be willing to pay.